Under the absolute rule of Kim Jong Un, North Korea doesn't just live in darkness. It exists in a world of extreme fear where the brutal actions of its leader defy all imagination. The decisions he makes not only send chills through the international community, but also force every North Korean citizen to live in constant, inescapable dread. How ruthless can Kim Jong Un be to protect his throne? What terrifying secrets is he hiding? And what horrifying acts does North Korea not want the world to see? Step into the mysterious and chilling world of Kim Jong Un, where power is sustained not only through dictatorship, but also through nightmarish measures. Brace yourself as we uncover stories not meant for the faint of heart. A world where power is safeguarded by ruthless purges, and even the closest allies can become targets of cold-blooded slaughter. In the shadows of the world's most brutal regime, Kim Jong Un is not just a leader. He is the embodiment of boundless cruelty. He rose to power with insatiable ambition, and every decision revolves around maintaining absolute control. But his path to the throne was far from easy. Faced with skepticism from the public and even from his own family, Kim Jong Un chose brutality as his means to assert dominance. Family, those who should have been his closest allies, became his greatest enemies. He did not simply suppress dissenters. He was willing to kill his own blood to consolidate power. These family massacres are not only reflections of his cruelty, but also bloody declarations of the absolute authority he commands. Two assassinations that shocked the world stand out: Jang Song-thaek, his uncle and once one of his strongest supporters, and Kim Jong Un, his half-brother, who was assassinated in a sophisticated plot. These events didn't just stun the international community. They highlighted the mercilessness and unyielding grip on power that Kim Jong Un possesses. They forced the world to ask, is there any limit to the brutality he is willing to unleash to hold on to his throne? Step into the world of Kim Jong Un, a realm where power and life can shift with a single decision. This is not just a political story, but a tragedy of conspiracies and brutality where the lives of millions of North Koreans are mere pawns in a ruthless game of power. And while the rest of the world still reels in shock, the truth about Kim Jong Un remains shrouded in darkness. No one knows where the limits of this leader's cruelty lie. In 2013, the world was stunned by an unthinkable and cold-blooded act. Kim Jong Un ordered the execution of his own uncle, Jang Song-thaek, once a political pillar, his right-hand man and most trusted confidant. More than a political decision, this was a lethal strike, a blood-soaked declaration that Kim's absolute power leaves no room for dissent, not even within his own family. Jang Song-thaek, once considered the second most powerful man in North Korea, was suddenly labeled a traitor in Kim's eyes. And the young dictator did not hesitate to sentence to death the very man who had helped him navigate the early days of his rule. But the carnage didn't stop there. Just a few years later, Kim Jong Un, his half-brother, met a similarly brutal fate, assassinated in broad daylight at a Malaysian international airport in front of innocent bystanders. A calculated and sophisticated plot, allegedly orchestrated by Kim Jong Un himself, aimed to eliminate any figure who might threaten his throne. These purges were not impulsive acts. They were strategy, part of a cold, calculated political chess game, engineered by Kim to eliminate every potential threat, even if that threat shared his blood. Chilling message was delivered across the inner circles of power. No one, not even family, is allowed to question or challenge me. When it came time to execute Jang Song-thaek, all notions of humanity were cast aside. According to leaked sources, Kim forced subordinates to witness a horrific spectacle. A devastating weapon was used to obliterate Jang's body beyond recognition. This was not just an execution, it was a psychological terror show designed to instill fear. It was a bloody and unmistakable warning. Under Kim Jong Un, power is absolute, and loyalty is the only path to survival. There is no room for mercy, no second chances, and the price of even a flicker of doubt is death. If you think blood ties could stop a dictator from taking action, then you don't know Kim Jong Un. Ruthless and calculating, he did not hesitate to eliminate his own half-brother, Kim Jong Un, simply because his existence was a thorn in the young leader's side. Since 2003, Kim Jong Un had lived in exile, seemingly beyond the reach of North Korean politics, but he never realized the shadow of power never lets go. And on February 13th, 2017, at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, North Korea's history was rewritten in blood. Two young women, unaware they were becoming pawns in a deadly plot, smeared a droplet of VX nerve agent on Kim Jong Un's face. Just a single drop was enough to paralyze his nervous system, cause excruciating pain, and lead to his death within minutes. It was a swift, cold-blooded, and meticulously orchestrated assassination. A message broadcast to the entire world: never stand in Kim Jong-un's way. The assassination of Kim Jong-un didn't just shock the global media. It etched an even darker portrait of a leader willing to go to terrifying extremes to protect his throne. Many theories suggest that Kim Jong-un had ties to the CIA, making him a potential threat. And as always, any perceived danger was swiftly erased. The two women, unknowingly involved, believed they were filming a reality show. They were arrested and imprisoned, only to be unexpectedly released after 2 years. The operation was so brilliantly staged that the world was left speechless. But the tragedy didn't end there. Following the execution of Jang Song-thaek, his entire family, once close to Kim, was subjected to merciless purges. Anyone with blood ties to Jang was exterminated, while more distant relatives were exiled to remote, desolate regions where no cry for help could be heard. But Kim Jong-un didn't just unleash his fury on his own family. Even innocent foreigners could become his victims. Otto Warmbier, a young American student, paid for one moment of curiosity with his life. In January 2016, Otto, on his way to study in Hong Kong, decided to make a short stop in Pyongyang. But just as he was preparing to leave, he was suddenly arrested at the airport right before the stunned eyes of other travelers. Danny Grattan, who had traveled with Otto, later recounted, he thought it was just a minor misunderstanding. But no one knew that this was the door to a living hell. Otto was sentenced to hard labor, and after more than a year in captivity, he was returned to the United States in a coma, only to die just days later. Once again, the world was shaken, and the image of Kim Jong-un became more terrifying than ever before. Otto, an American student who had simply gotten caught in the whirlwind of one of the harshest regimes on earth. He was accused of trying to steal a propaganda poster in North Korea, and for that, he was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. But Otto's trial was never about justice. It was about sending a message. Within just 2 months, the world witnessed a chilling political performance where law served as nothing more than a weapon of intimidation. Otto, once a carefree young man, had been turned into a pawn in Kim Jong Un's cruel power game from the moment of his arrest. Otto was plunged into an unending nightmare. His days in the labor camp were not just filled with confinement and hunger, but relentless physical and psychological torment, a brutal warning to any foreigner daring to cross the invisible line drawn by the regime. Images of Otto in his final days, emaciated, dazed, with vacant eyes, still send shivers down the spine. His death didn't come from external wounds, but from within unseen injuries that crushed his soul. Strange scars, inexplicable cracks on his body, he all told a story of pain that no words could fully capture. Throughout his captivity, both the Obama and Trump administrations tried desperately to bring Otto home. But by the time he was returned, he was no longer the same person. He came back in a vegetative state, his body still present, but his spirit seemingly left behind forever in that frozen land. What remained was a shell of the human being he once was, a haunting symbol of silent, calculated, and inescapable torture. A wave of horrifying theories began to surface about what Otto may have endured. Among them was one method that chilled people to the bone: waterboarding, a brutal technique where victims are forced to face the primal terror of drowning, not just physically, but mentally, as they fracture under panic. No one but his captors knows exactly what happened to Otto, but one thing is certain: he was targeted, crushed from the inside by a system designed to break people each passing day. Otto's condition didn't just worsen, it withered, slowly, painfully. His family, devastated and powerless, could only watch their son fade away like a candle, struggling in the dark. 6 days after returning to America, Otto drew his final breath. He slipped away in silence, leaving behind a question no one dares to answer. Could this tragedy have been prevented? If Otto had never set foot in North Korea, his death didn't just stun the US. It jolted the entire world awake. A wave of outrage surged across the globe. The US government immediately issued stern warnings. Once you confront North Korea, you may never escape their deadly wrath. The prison camps in North Korea have always been a chilling topic, not just because of their brutality, but due to their invisibility. In this darkness, Kenneth Bay, a living witness, stepped out of that hell with a story so unbelievable that no one could have imagined it. Bay was accused of plotting to overthrow the government. And from that moment, a series of psychological tortures began. He was interrogated continuously from morning till night, every movement watched. They didn't just want a confession. They wanted to break him, force him to admit that he was a terrorist, a sadistic psychological game that pushed a person to the brink of collapse. But that was just the surface Kenneth had to endure. Forced labor for 8 hours a day, not for justice, but to serve the ruthless machine of human destruction known as Kwanliso, North Korea's most infamous political prison system. In these places, humans cease to be human. They are tools, grotesque symbols of punishment. No trials, no laws, and even worse, entire families of prisoners are implicated, dragged down, to hell with them, in an inescapable whirlpool. Imagine a place where every dawn doesn't bring hope, but instead marks the beginning of another hellish day. In North Korea's notorious prison camps, survival isn't a given. It's a bloody battle between man and fate. Hundreds, even thousands of prisoners die each year not by execution, but from hunger, cold, disease, and exhaustion in forced labor. From dawn until dusk, they are pushed into grueling tasks, digging deep mines, chopping wood in the wilderness, or tilling dry fields, all without gloves or a drop of clean water, under bone-chilling cold or scorching heat. Their bodies deteriorate day by day. The scars etched on their skin are not just marks of labor, but are living testaments to a life stripped of everything. Here, life is just a faint smudge in the darkness, a fragile survival instinct amid despair and pain. And if anyone dares to escape this hell, they face a security system as brutal as a death trap. High walls, razor-sharp barbed wire, guards armed and ready to shoot without warning. The tales whispered like chilling legends, pregnant women in the camps, are not seen as lives to protect, but as threats to eliminate. More painfully, prisoners not only starve, they are forced to eat rats, insects, anything that moves, anything that might help them survive another day. Their skin turns black, their bodies reduced to mere skin and bone. In cramped cells, so small they can't even lie down. They sleep, sitting up like lifeless corpses. The stench, the mold, the midnight cries together form an image of horror that words cannot describe. This is not just forced labor. This is a campaign to crush the soul. A way for Kim Jong Un's regime to break the will of each individual, turning them into silent shadows with no ability to resist. A forgotten world. Do you dare believe it still exists in the 21st century? In North Korea, being labeled as a threat to the regime means you could become the main character in a public execution show. Under the bright sun in North Korea, this isn't a dystopian fantasy, it's a gruesome reality. Public executions no longer hidden in the darkness, but carried out in stadiums, schoolyards, or even in central squares. Here, thousands of people, from the frail elderly to young children, are forced to witness each cold moment of death. Why, it might sound like a cruel joke. Watching South Korean movies, listening to foreign music, or simply owning a Western music player. In 2022, a 22-year-old man was executed for sharing K-pop films and music. His last screams, the gunshot echoing in the deadly silence, not to punish one individual, but to instill terror in the millions who are forced to watch. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of oppression. Culture not stamped with the mark of North Korea is erased without mercy under Kim Jong Un's iron fist. All foreign content is banned outright. A song, a movie, or even a borrowed word from the South Korean language could land you on the list of enemies of the state. Religion. It's absolutely forbidden. Believing in any deity outside of the truth of the regime means an unimaginable price, torture, imprisonment, or even disappearing without a trace. Intellectuals, artists, and creators, those who carry the flame of freedom, disappear into the shadows of brutal prison camps, not because they are criminals, but because they dared to dream differently. North Korea has built a society where all independent thought is crushed from the very start. A country locked not with chains, but with silent fear. The people live in an invisible cage. No locks, because no one dares dream of escape. A silent society, a land of shadows, and a regime ruled by the extinguishing of hope. If you think the cultural bans in North Korea are the worst, then brace yourself. Behind that closed door lies a nightmare, deeper, darker, and far more terrifying. Under Kim Jong Un's iron hand, North Korea is not just a country of silence. It is a land where human rights are shattered day by day. Brutal crimes hang like ghosts over the nation, draining the last ounce of human will from its people. Freedom of speech, it doesn't exist. A single complaint or even a wrong glance could make you disappear. Every word is monitored. Every breath could be a final goodbye. People live like prey, always wary, always on the lookout for the predators called the government. And that's not all. Millions of people are turned into cogs in the forced labor machine, from never-ending construction projects to state-serving initiatives that no one understands. Especially for women, children, and the disabled, they are not only exploited, but crushed in a vortex of helplessness, a harsh reality with no protector. Even moving within their own country is a luxury privilege. In North Korea, if you want to travel from one province to another, you need a permit. Without it, you're a criminal. And if you try to escape the country, death can come in the form of a cold gunshot at the border, where the guards are trained to feel no emotion, no conscience, no mercy. The tightening reached its peak during the COVID-19 pandemic. Taking advantage of the reason of protecting citizens, the regime locked down every exit, turning all of North Korea into a massive prison. Checkpoints sprung up everywhere, controlling every step, every breath of the people traveling once. A necessity is now a survival struggle where each journey is a gamble with fate. Each passing day is a quiet battle, not with gunshots, but with blood. No visible wounds, but deep scars, mental willpower, and a thirst for life. In North Korea, access to basic needs like food, medicine, or medical care, which are taken for granted in many parts of the world, is a brutal survival battle. The people here don't just live in scarcity. They are suffocated by a ruthless control system that turns the simplest things into luxuries. For those who dare to risk escape, the journey across the border is a deadly gamble. Those who make it to China think they've found a light. But the truth is, they're only starting a new chapter in their nightmare. They must live in hiding, crouching in safe houses, constantly running from the long reach of Pyongyang. Many are captured by the Chinese authorities and deported. Back to the hell, they risk their lives to escape an ongoing silent tragedy that cuts deep inside North Korea. The healthcare system has completely collapsed. Hospitals are short of medicine, electricity, and even clean water. Doctors, if they can even be called that, are forced to resort to traditional remedies, methods that have no scientific backing. Like a rotting raft in the ocean, a fever could kill a person because there's no fever medicine. A wound could become fatal from infection because there's no disinfectant. Pain is no longer a symptom of illness, but part of everyday life. The horrific hunger that spread death from the 1990s still lingers, casting a long shadow. The agricultural system is barren, lacking equipment, and heavily reliant on foreign aid, all of which leaves rural areas in a state of exhaustion. In some places, people are forced to forage for grass, eating raw grain, just to survive another day. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the regime closed the borders, cutting off all aid, turning North Korea into a starvation island in the world. It's estimated that nearly 40% of the population is struggling with famine. The ones left behind, starving like ghosts, quietly fading away in a world no one sees, while millions of North Koreans struggle daily to survive amid scarcity and illness. Kim Jong Un, the head of the nation, remains cold, pouring billions of dollars into nuclear programs. In his eyes, weapons of mass destruction seem more important than human life. The rockets launched into the sky are not symbols of power, but chilling reminders of a regime willing to sacrifice everything, except its own power, behind thick walls and barbed wire fences of tightly secured facilities. A real nightmare is taking place. Inhumane experiments on human beings, witnesses, recount how countless innocent people, from children to the elderly, are taken into Serum to be subjected to chemical toxins, biological weapons, and other lethal substances. They are no longer considered human beings, but mere specimens. In a gruesome game, there is no right to say no, no opportunity to escape. Those who are arrested, whether political prisoners, failed defectors, or simply people who displease the regime, are brought to notorious labor camps, which are described living laboratories. Their people have no names, no rights, only numbers and days filled with the deepest fear. Scientists under the government's control are forced to carry out these experiments. Rumor has it that Kim Jong Un himself has personally supervised some of these trials as a way to display his absolute power, disregarding all international conventions on human rights. These stories don't appear in the news. There are no images, no concrete evidence, but what has leaked out is enough to make the world shudder. A country where hope has been crushed, where life is traded just to maintain a brutal regime. This is no longer a fantasy, but the reality for millions of North Koreans living in fear every day. Not only focused on developing weapons, these secret programs are also said to be seeking entirely new methods to deploy technology in more discreet, harder-to-detect ways. Some sources report that researchers in these secret areas have been tasked with creating special compounds capable of affecting a target with almost no trace left behind. If this is true, then this is not only a race for technology, but also a wake-up call for humanity. Is science being manipulated to serve purposes we never imagined? But perhaps the most thought-provoking question is when humans, under pressure, fear, or control, may go so far as to use knowledge and creativity to serve purposes that cross moral boundaries. Thank you for following along. If you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes, where we will continue exploring the hidden corners of the world today.